Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to the Macro Lounge podcast. I am, of course, your co-host, Chris Bold, joined by the queen of all sparkles, Rachel Mead. How are we this morning, Rachel? Or afternoon? Wherever.
We are stranded at the moment because I have a flat tire.
Okay, so how is one stranded with a flat tire? Because most cars, as far as I'm aware, they come with this thing called a spare.
Yes, but I don't have a jack. I have a spare, but I don't have a jack.
Okay, I'm going to put my fatherly hat on in a minute and go, Rachel, your father's a mechanic. How do you not have a jack?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, but also he's in Australia right now, so he's not very helpful.
Okay, maybe this sounds like a question we should probably ask him is, how did you leave your daughter without a jack in her car? Or are we going to find out that there's actually one in the car, you just don't know where it is?
Well, yeah, possibly. It did say it could possibly be under the driver's seat. We looked around for it, and he did say he was going to check for it, but I haven't heard any updates, so I don't know. Who knows?
Okay. First world problems.
Exactly. All I know is I ran over a nail.
That's definitely an Ed. So I think Ed should be blamed for that.
He's absolutely to blame because he was supposed to drive me to the supermarket and come with me, but he made me go by myself for food shopping, and it was very upsetting.
Well, he also gets what he's given if he sends you to the grocery store unsupervised.
See, but when I'm unsupervised, he usually gets better things.
This could be a problem. Yeah,
because it means that he's not there to tell me no if I feel like something.
It works the opposite way with Valerie and I. If we go supervised, she's like on speed dating. She's like, get in, get out, and get home. So we come home with like chicken, and that's about it. I'm like, what about all the other stuff? And she's like, no, didn't want to be there. I'm like, oh, okay.
But what if you sent Val by herself? What if she went by herself?
Well, she'd probably get distracted by somewhere like Spotlight or something first, and then that would all be over.
That's fair. Spotlight's a very distracting place. I can't blame her for that.
It's like I was doing a check-in with somebody yesterday, and she was doing it from the parking lot of IKEA, and I was like, how much crap do you have in the back of the car right now? And she was like, I'm not going to show you. I was like, okay, fair enough.
That sounded like she intended to be home, but then got a little bit sidetracked.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I took that one. I was like, you didn't think about that properly, did you? So anyway, what's going on in the world of bodybuilding at the moment? We haven't had any competitions in this part of the world this week. What do we got? Don't have long until, oh no, I lie. We had the INBA in Palmerston North on Saturday. Unfortunately, it looked like a bit of a small show. I think there was about 20 or 30 athletes, but INBA, I think, is in the process of relaunching itself. So I don't think we should hold that against them.
One thing
Didn't seem to be a hell of a lot. Sorry,
I was going to say, kudos to them for all the photography and backstage stuff that they did, because when they did have a live stream on YouTube, which was pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't the greatest because it wasn't an official live stream, but kudos to them for a live stream. And then they also, people have been posting some footage of some of the, I think it was like videography and photography. It looked awesome. Like they did really, really well on it. And then they had a few like backstage interviews and stuff. So I do have to say kudos to them for that, because it did look like they really put in the effort for it. So that was awesome. Awesome job for them. Yeah,
look, I mean, I think that part, they were doing some backstage interviews and stuff, and I think that's an important part into drumming up, more participation in the sport when people are seeing more of it, as opposed to just here's a stage photo of athlete A on stage. So yeah, kudos to them. And I think also it's smart doing that live streaming onto YouTube, because you actually get around some of the copyright issues that comes up on Instagram. I mean, you get somebody had it happen before in Egypt files a complaint because you're playing, some top 40 pop song by somebody else, and you're like, and they kick you off. So the YouTube is quite a good way that you can get it, that they get around some of that, which is a good idea. So for those promoters, if you're listening, live stream on YouTube. It's not as difficult as you would think. So yeah, that was good. What else? Nothing else really going on in this part of the world. It was interesting seeing
3 weeks out. 3 weeks out from ICN first show of the year, so everyone's starting to get close now. But yeah, nothing that's actually happened much.
First show?
Second show. Oh my God, I'm just.
Yeah, lots of sparkles. Yeah, it's the second show of the year in.
That's the one.
The North Island one. So it's again in Palmerston North, as we've discovered this year. All bodybuilding roads in New Zealand apparently go through Palmerston North, because I think there's 4 shows there this year. I think they got more shows in Auckland.
They do,
which is interesting. So, and we will of course be down there for that one. So that'll be exciting. But before that, we've obviously got the Accentuate Posing Academy workshop in Christchurch. That's not too far away. Only got a couple of weeks for that one.
Yeah, actually, because that's 1 week before, I believe. So
yep.
That will be in 2 weeks' time.
Where does the year... It's going to be Christmas before we know it, and then we're going to have to start thinking about what we're going to do next year. And then I'll just find more crap for us to do, and then both of our respective spouses will just shake their heads at us and go, "You two should not be
I think Val will do more than shake her head.
That's true. She's small but feisty.
Because she will be more part of said crazy ventures, than I think Ed will. Ed's very good at staying out of it. Val, less so.
That's because we find stuff for her to do. We just delegate it to. We go, "I don't want to do it." You go, "I don't want to do it." And we go, "Well, I know who will."
It's because she's got this unfortunate thing where she's actually very good at most things. And she also finds it very difficult to watch someone else do it worse.
Mm.
So if she can do it better, she will.
She likes to say she actually has no skills. She just fakes it all. I said, "Well, you do an exceptionally good job." But it's much like when I watch her go into the kitchen. As soon as I see her pick up a knife, I'm like, "Yeah, nah, I'll do it. It's fine." And I think she knows this, so I think she does it intentionally. It's kind of like it's like, when Sanjay goes to his food bowl when he's like, wants some food in it, there's none there, and he just gives you that look of like, "You do realize that I know this is empty." Everybody's kind of like that with knives. She's kind of like, "Yeah, you can see me doing it," and I'm like, So,
well, I mean, when you were gone, she did live off. What was it? Was it jam on toast?
Yeah,
for
pretty
a
much
few days,
like
for a week.
Yeah. I think there might have been some baked beans and jacket potato in there at one stage, but that would be considered, fine dining.
It's English fine dining.
Yeah, English fine dining. Yeah. And I'm not allowed to make the jacket potatoes because I don't do it properly.
It's because you're not English.
No. I mean, I do have a culinary degree, so the chances are I've probably got a bit more idea about it. But no. Apparently, no.
Well, it's like, are you allowed to make her tea? Like proper English tea with milk? Are you allowed to make that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I only learned the other day that apparently I don't put enough milk in it.
Oh, that's surprising. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, I was like, fine, make it yourself. We're going to be. Yeah, no. But yes, we will probably, no doubt, just make more work for her. And she'll say, unless you guys start paying me, and probably will veto us from using cat pictures as payment. So we might have to start thinking about that.
We do need to up our game. We need to start selling our Don't Be a Dick t-shirts.
That's right. Yes, we must get another project for Valerie to do. There you go. So if you want to have less stuff to do, my dear, you just need to make more t-shirts. That she'll be loving that. Anyway, other than getting ourselves in trouble with our producer and my beloved wife, what else is going on in the world of bodybuilding? It's been interesting seeing some of the trash talk coming out of the US around the payments or the prize money for bodybuilding. There was some interesting stuff the other day. They were talking about the prize pools for some of the pro shows. The current prizes are exactly the same as it was 20 years ago.
Really?
So you're talking about an open pro winning anywhere between $6,000 and $10,000 for the men's, and for the women was as low as $1,500 to $2,000 US. And this hasn't changed. Oddly enough, there's a shitload more pros than there used to be 20 years ago. And obviously the available funding for said prizes has obviously increased. But when you think about it, I mean, none of these guys making any money out of these competing, but it was interesting just seeing some of the crap talk that was on. I fell down that Reddit hole of that for a while. And that's
I was going to say, I haven't seen this talk, so I was wondering where you found it.
I went off the Sparkle one and went down the other line, and then it was 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, okay, I need to stop doing this because.
But yes, you would think that because obviously the pros do have to pay their memberships.
Yep.
And then we've got a lot of them these days with how many shows there are. There's an increase in shows. There's just overall more competitors, more awareness. You would think there would be more money turning. You
would think so. The unfortunate side is it's not the governing body that fronts up with the prize money. It's the promoters. So obviously, they're having to front up with the cash. And are they making any more money? I think that would probably be the better side to look at, not just the federations themselves or the promoting bodies. At the end of the day, they're only going to be able to give that money to pay based on people that come through the gate sales, and and if they get sponsorship, and there's not a lot of sponsorship out there for competitive bodybuilding these days. It's interesting when you look at the prize money in the OCB and the Yorton Cup. There's some fairly hefty prize money, and also recently ICN for the World Physique Games. The prize money in there was not insubstantial for the size of the show. So maybe the Pro League needs to start understanding the word professional does kind of imply you're getting paid.
Well, I mean, even in ICN, you actually can get prize money for amateur as well. Because, I mean, usually it's only at the bigger shows. But at World Champs, I got $400 cash. That was for the pro show, though. But then also I got, I think, about $500 worth of vouchers. So, yeah, it wasn't bad.
On the global scale of things, though, I mean, a pro bodybuilder is generally not going to be living on the rich life, shall we say?
No,
yeah.
Usually not. It's not. It's not the cheapest sport in the world. But yeah, no. I mean, the biggest thing I know that this isn't necessarily a topic today, but there's always debate about the Olympia prize money or even the Arnold prize money. There's always big debate about it. So yeah, the money is always a sensitive topic. Yeah,
and I think when you look at prize money in professional bodybuilding, there's obviously zero gender equality on that one.
Oh, of course not.
When you look, and to reality of it is not even a popular equality, because if you compare, say, I don't know, at the Open Mr. Olympia, let's say, Derek Lunsford versus Seabum, there's a lot of bodybuilding fans probably couldn't even tell you who the hell Lunsford is. And then if you go down again another step and you start looking at, I don't know, the bikini class versus the Open Olympia, I mean, they're getting 1/10 of the prize money. And
it would be interesting to see those statistics. Like if you had to push what's your favorite category that you're mainly wanting to watch if you buy the subscription, or when you enter the building, if they had like a little survey. It would be very interesting to see that, I think.
Yeah, and also I think if you equate it back to the number of competitors, say at the amateur level, I mean, you only have to go to any amateur show across any federation in the world, and at least 50% of the shows these days are the female classes, of which the majority of them are the less muscular classes. The majority of them are made up of the bikini, the fit model, fitness model. So, who are the promoters really trying to appeal to? It's like, if the competitors are competing are the audience that's watching, then why aren't they marketing more towards that side as opposed to just saying, we're going to give the mass monsters $500,000, which is probably going to cover their gear bill for the year.
Well, I mean, it's the same with like men's physique, for example. That's the most popular men's division, isn't it? Well, I mean, like for competitive, like not necessarily at pro level,
athletes,
but
the athlete numbers.
And I would say that their support wouldn't be small for the audience either.
No. I mean, I haven't been to the Olympia for a while. It's interesting that you have the main arena, which traditionally is where the Mr. Olympia is, and then they started bringing in like some of the parts of the finals for some of the other classes. But like men's physique and bikini, and that has traditionally been at the expo, and it's just a stage and on one side of the wall at the expo. Yeah. And the reality is there's 250, 300,000 people going through the expo, but there's probably only 500 to 1,000 people. Somebody can correct me what the size of the audience is, but it's a fraction are actually going to watch the show. It's almost like it's a stall. I mean, you see bigger lines to see Jay Cutler selling frickin' shoes.
Well, anyway, speaking of divisions, speaking of all of our divisions, that brings us to our topic for today, which was a slight tangent.
What is it? What is our topic today? Is the topic the tangent or the starting the tangent? I can never tell.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of listening to us, isn't it? You'll never know.
Because we don't.
So today we thought we'd talk a little bit about what are the judges actually looking for from the criteria, because we have kind of alluded to this in a lot of podcasts, but I don't think we've ever actually specifically covered it. Looking at the criteria, and because we've got Chris, who is a well-known judge of how many years now, Chris?
Just as long as you've been alive.
So he has a lot of experience in judging. So we thought we'd actually go over, when we read the criteria, what does it actually mean? Because we did have a little bit of a tangent or a spiel last week, I believe it was, about how the criteria can be, it was the week before, interpreted quite differently.
Yep.
But there is, I guess, kind of a standard interpretation of what more or less it's supposed to mean. Yeah. So we're going to kind of cover that.
And the reality is the written rules, as Rachel and I actually had trouble finding, particularly around the NPC and IFBB, they're very vague. And again, it comes down to interpretation. And the thing about judging, which I think is that probably what happens in, general fandom, general population, is people overcomplicate the judging. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not one thing. There are some set criteria. Some of the federations have a little bit more clear and concise about what the criteria is and what they're looking for. They are looking at the complete package. And the reality of it is you're not going to see consistency in judging at the amateur level. because there's not a consistency in athletes. So you can't take it out on the judges. You can't take it out on the criteria. You can look a little bit more into some clarity on what the criteria is and what they're being judged on. But you are always going to see a lot more inconsistency at the amateur level based purely on the athletes that are there. Whereas at the pro level, you don't need to be a 25-year plus experienced judge to look at a lineup and be able to pick the top 5. It's fairly clear because the professional athletes are meeting all of the criteria. So, and we'll go through some of those in a minute, but you're not going to see somebody like Laura Lee being penalized for not meeting any of the criteria, because the reality of it is she ticks all the boxes. Same with Jen Dory and Janet Leog and all of these well-known bikini athletes at that level. Tick, 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 tick. They've got all of the boxes, and then it does come down to the interpretation of the criteria at that show. So it's generally you're going to see more consistency across the board. Where if you put up a judging score sheet for an amateur show, you're going to see all over the freaking place, and that's why. When we talked the other day about judging, we were talking about how they take out the highest and the lowest scores so that they can get an average. And sometimes that can be a shit show.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's at the higher levels, even in the amateur, if you're at a show with a very high standard, it's going to be easier to pick apart who is not meeting the criteria in certain places. It's much easier to, if you have a lineup of bikini girls who look very much like bikini girls and say, oh, she's a bit too jacked or she doesn't have enough muscle, we're going to put her out to the side a little bit and let's compare these ones who are a bit closer. And it's a lot easier to do that when no one meets any of the boxes and you're like, well, now who is at the least furthest away?
Yeah.
Which it can sometimes be.
Yeah, it can be, in some shows it can be, okay, who's the closest to the criteria? And then in other shows it can be who's the furthest away from the criteria.
And then work backwards.
And work backwards. It's like, oh shit. But and that's the thing is, like, most people who call themselves fans, coaches, everything, they actually don't know what the criteria is because they haven't bothered looking. They haven't been trained. Which kudos to. We'll give the ICN a little bit of a shout out here. They are now doing coaching workshops across the country. Rachel and I went to the first one 2 weeks ago. In Tauranga, so that at least the coaches are understanding the criteria of what they're looking for. But quite frequently, us as fans, when we're watching a show, we don't really know what the criteria is. And there's a couple of common myths that when you're watching a show, it's like the biggest athlete always wins. The leanest athlete's going to win, or the hardest athlete, or the one with the most expensive bikini.
Well, obviously, it's the sparkliest bikini. Not the most expensive, just the sparkly. The
sparkliest, sparkles always win. Although, unless it's a white sparkles, then as we know, Rachel says that one's out.
The worst is probably the orange in most cases.
Yeah,
yellow.
Yeah, and people think politics decides everything, or the loudest supporters and the influences the judges. And the weird thing is, most of that's absolute bollocks.
To be fair, it will make the judges think. Like, if they keep hearing the audience calling number 70, if everyone's calling that, they might. There's subconscious be like, oh, I better look at what the audience is screaming for. Usually,
when that happens, I do this. What the hell are you looking at? There you go. All right, that person obviously got most family and friends here today. They bought extra tickets. Audience award. But yeah, I don't know. If we look at the criteria, I think to say that Rachel and I don't go off on all sorts of weird tangents, we'll just focus on the ones that are nearest and dearest to our hearts, and that's the queen of sparkles. So we'll just focus on the bikini and maybe we'll dabble a little bit with the fit model criteria.
I do have the wellness in front of me as well.
Oh, you do have the wellness around. See, look, you're so efficient today. So, and to be fair, each federation is a little bit different on how they display what their criteria is. I really like the OCB. Their details of what the criteria are very, very specific. So right down to what the judging criteria is for each one and which one has got the priority. But if you take, looking at Bikini and the criteria, I mean, obviously they've got the main criteria, which is muscularity, condition, symmetry, balance, and presentation. Now that applies right across the board for every division. Those are essentially the 4 things that they're looking at.
Chris, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that order that they have that listed, because they always have that listed in the criteria, those bullet points in that order, is that the order of most importance?
Well,
or is it supposed to be at least?
Technically, it's supposed to be, but interesting, like if you look at what, say, the ICN says, and Rachel, you've got that in front of you there. When you look at the stuff across on the right-hand side where it talks about the growth, they have ranked in order what the most important is there. Traditionally, you would say muscularity is more important in, say, a class like wellness or figure or whatever. But the reality of it is, it still is the first thing you're looking at because it's still bodybuilding, right? So, but you're looking at a different level of muscularity, and that's probably where the vagueness comes into it, because the description of what's an appropriate level of muscularity is very, very open for interpretation. And we've spoken before about how they say, or particularly in the Pro League, IFBB Pro League, when they say you should be looking at the Olympia as being that is the benchmark of what they're looking for. Yet we know from looking at the pictures and the results, they look at a different level of muscularity than, say, the Toronto Pro or the New York Pro or even the Pittsburgh Pro. So the interpretation around that can be open. But yeah, you would say generally, first thing is going to be muscularity. Is it the appropriate level of muscularity for that class? Conditioning is the same thing.
Sorry, just to clarify. So that one where it say the order is muscularity, condition, symmetry, and then presentation, that is the IFBB NPC.
Yeah.
And then for ICN, it says overall shape and symmetry, which I would actually say kind of does feed into muscularity, but muscularity is the second one. And then we've got conditioning and then presentation. So,
which goes against what Brenda said, that presentation was more important than conditioning.
Well, actually, I'm
going to point out to her that her rules are wrong.
Well, I actually swear I remember somewhere in like some ICN handbook somewhere that I saw on the website somewhere. I think it was on the official website that it said at some point that it was 50% posing the bikini, but I don't think that's ever been followed like anywhere.
I know with FMG there's a big, or WBFF / morphed into FMG, there is a more importance placed on the presentation and the posing side than, say, symmetry and stuff like that. They actually rank that right the way up. And that's, again, it's like understanding what the judging criteria is for the federation that you're choosing to do. I mean, there's no point going into, say, FMG when you're just 100% just worried about symmetry, when that's really not that high up on their criteria. Whereas, Rach said, the symmetry and conditioning side is ranked a little bit higher under ICN than, say, under IFBB, which is why if you look at the different federations, you're seeing a different level of muscularity being presented, and you definitely cannot argue that the muscularity in the IFBB for bikini is considerably more than what you would see in ICN for bikini model, not for fitness model.
Does OBC have that little bullet point list as well, so we can add that one in there too?
They do. You're going to ask me where I put it now, aren't you? 1 second, please, Call. Please hold.
It's just so that we've got all three in front of us. Just might as well. I mean, I've got, the NPC one in front of me and the ICN one, so we might as well also have that OBC as well, so that we've got a nice little range of spread in front of us.
Yeah, I did have it. Sorry.
Oh, I thought you were organised today, Chris.
No, don't be silly. I had it somewhere now. I just don't remember where I put it.
Oh dear, what happened to the split screen? Well, while he's looking at that, I might as well read out the next part of the criteria.
All right, you go for that.
From the NPC criteria, so it says bikini athletes should display a foundation of muscle which gives shape to the female body, full round glutes with slight separation of the hamstring glute area, small amount of roundness to the delts, conditioned core, and overall look, hair, suit, makeup, tan. So I find this one interesting, the small amount of roundness to the delts.
Yeah, because I don't really think that when you look at the athletes now, what they're obviously calling a small amount of roundness to the delt has considerably developed since the rules were actually being written. As I said, I don't remember the last time there was actually a rewrite of the rules and the judging criteria. So again, this is where the hard part comes in, is like, if you just go by the rules and how you interpret them, then I would say that the small amount of roundness to the delts is almost now what you're going to be saying as somebody was doing fit model, because they are considerably less smaller.
I'm fairly sure that is the fit model criteria. Hang on, I do have that fit model.
Whereas if you were to show up with almost no, I mean, you look at the delts on some of the the bikini now, their delts are massive. Really.
I think now the interpretation of that roundness is, if you were just looking at the silhouette, it's roundness that would give you, like, you would see the rounded shape over the arm. Like, it's not out of proportion roundness, it's like proportionate to the rest of the body roundness. if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And it's interesting, if you look at the OCB judging criteria, the way that they define bikini, the desired look is achieved by presenting a lightly muscled and not overly lean or hard appearing physique as compared to figure of wellness or women's bikini, based on an overall healthy, toned body with good symmetry, fullness, balance, shape, proportion. But the three criteria that they list in order is symmetry first, then definition, then size. So the muscularity, much like ICN, is dropped down in the criteria. Now, you also got to remember that these criteria, you can't just take it as one thing. You can't just say, well, the criteria says A, B, and C, because you have to apply that criteria to every single pose that they do. So that's why I frequently tell people that I have a very large collection of these books here that I keep for every show that I've ever judged. So if anybody robs me, they can probably find out 20 years ago who I placed somewhere, and I could probably get in a shitload of trouble. So maybe I shouldn't tell people about that. But if you go back to the criteria for judging your muscularity first for IFBB, then the condition, then symmetry and balance and presentation, you have to judge every single athlete in every single pose. You can't just say the first person who comes out that, wow, she's got the best muscularity, she's got the best condition, she's got the best symmetry, and she's got the best posing based on one pose. You have to score that for every single pose, which means technically for bikini, you've got a minimum of 4 points that you can do. Now, remember, it's not actually a point system.
NPC is only 2.
Yeah, so 2 points. But you could argue that the walk to the front and walk to the back is also scoreable. And I would also argue that posing is a whole separate scoring thing. Because, again, if you can get your mandatories spot on, that's not really posing as such. That's just, you're doing what you're supposed to.
That's just showing off exaggerating what you've got, basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reality of it is, like, if you're scoring each one of those things, and let's say bikini, if you're doing the front pose, the back pose, and then you're doing the walk to the back, I will also do things like, you got to remember you're being judged from the minute before you walk on stage. So if I can see you in the side, I'm paying attention. They are going to go through and they're going to score all of those things multiple times, especially experienced judges that have been doing it for a long time. It's hard work doing this because it's fast. And like, if you've got, let's say, take IFBB in a height division, you might have 12 girls say 15 girls in a class. So you're going to do 3 groups of 5 to start off with before you've even started your first call outs. You've technically scored 15 girls for a minimum of 3 points each. You've ranked them into your top 5. And you're running through that criteria, who closely fits the muscularity level that you're looking at. So, does that muscularity balance for that level? Have they got the condition from front or back? And sometimes girls will have great conditioning from the front, and the back conditioning, as the lovely Beck Williams will tell us, is don't wiggle, don't jiggle. And that could be a different jiggle and wiggle from the front and from the back. So it's, that's what they're looking at, as those 4 things, but they're looking at it multiple times throughout the show. So, you have to make sure that you've got all of those things from every single angle. And obviously, the more muscularity levels that classes go up, then there's more things to consider. Figure's got 4, and IFBB's got 4. ICN figure whatever has got the side chest, the tricep, the back double biceps, and front double biceps. I think classic figure's just the quarter turns, isn't it?
Classic figure is just the mandatories, the symmetry.
Yeah, so there's more to be scored there. But you've got to know that each federation has got that different criteria. And as we've just said, the OCB kind of flicks that on its ear. ICN muscularity is less important. And that's the sort of thing you need to know before you go into a show. Like, if you're not the most muscular girl, well, chances are you show up in a bikini in the IFBB or the NPC, you're going to get dinged. You might have the best symmetry and you might have great conditioning for the class, but if you're teeny tiny with, no shoulder caps, no glutes roundness, no quad sweep, then you're in the wrong class.
So the different federations do look for different things, but I mean, overall, generally bikini is very based on symmetry, and that's something that we will hear a lot. But what does that actually mean? Because, I mean, to be fair, the bikini front pose, the traditional side front pose, it's not really symmetrical, is it? It's not like a figure front symmetry pose. You're not actually drawing a line and looking the same on either side.
No, that's what I've always said. The hardest class to judge is bikini, because you're literally like, oh, damn. Here we go.
So it's technically not symmetrical, but it's about the balance. So I do this a lot with posing as well, often people will make the mistake of over-posing, say, their glutes, for example, because they are really trying to stick their glutes out to make their glutes look as big as possible, but now their upper body looks really, really small in comparison. So balance is very, very important across all the federations. Doesn't matter. They all, in bikini, require balance. They want your shoulders to match your glutes. They want your hamstrings also to match. They want everything to be pretty balanced. They don't want one body part to stand out over another. And that's very big conversation that most people have around bikini, because it used to be that having a really good glute pop and your glutes actually being slightly out of proportion used to be very, very beneficial. That is less beneficial these days. I have once before actually also posted, like, I drew lines on either side of my pose, and you can see where everything lines up. So the elbow and the knee kind of come pretty close in line. Your shoulder and your glute from the other side where you're sticking glute out, that should be in a straight line to the ground. Like if you've got an angle there, shoulders are sticking out too much, angle the other way, glutes sticking out too much, you're no longer in balance. So it's not necessarily about, is this exactly symmetrical as in like a mirror image? It becomes, is it balanced? Are all the lines?
Like if you look at, say, figure, for example, they say the X shape, right? But the reality of it is I look at it as two different triangles. So you've got shoulder down to essentially navel. And actually, I usually go to the top of like if I'm doing, say, a feedback for somebody, I'll actually draw a line from the outside of their delts down to basically the top of their pubic bone. And then if I'm doing for the lower body, I'll take it from just about the navel, or even some cases the sternum, and then down that way as well. And then that kind of gives you an idea of the shape that they're looking for. But each class is different, and the reality of it is, if you look at the classic now bikini front/side pose, I don't think you can call it a front pose anymore, can you? If you look at it, it is almost two different types of triangles. You've got your shoulder down through your waist, and then you're also looking at from the shoulder down through the glute on that is sticking out, but they're different size. It's not necessarily symmetry, but it is a balance that works. It's like they're looking for that overall appeal, and they're not necessarily looking for the girl with the biggest glutes. They're looking for the girl with the most balanced glutes, and that could be making sure that they're three-dimensional as opposed to just look great from the side and look great from the back. So it's a tricky one, but especially in bikini now, where they're, if you take the Olympia, they're slightly softer look. They're not looking for etched in hamstrings, and that means from as you said, Rachel, that's when you're posing that back shot, there's a lot of girls who will flex their glutes and flex their hamstrings, and the reality of it is it just flattens out the glutes and the hamstrings anyway. So and
it can cause that squaring.
Yeah, which
they don't want in bikini. They literally say it should not have the squaring of the glutes.
The squared glutes, yeah. So yeah, I mean that's essentially what the judges are looking for. I mean, obviously the presentation it's not just posing. They are looking for, I mean, technically you're not supposed to be marked down if you've got a crap tan, but the reality is you're going to be. And like,
I mean, it does say it in the criteria. It does say tan in the criteria.
Yeah, overall look, hair, makeup, suit, and tan. So it all comes into it. And that's why we always say don't cheap out on the tan, although if you've done all the work, if you're going to go get a crap tan, it will be noticeable. And the reality is that it's what the judges are going to notice. Because remember, they're not always looking for the good things. If it's tough, they're looking for the bad things. And that's at a pro level. You're usually looking for a weakness, whereas you're judging amateurs, you're looking for a strength. And if you've got a lot of athletes that have got similar strengths, so that's when you start looking for, okay, where did they screw up? Did they mess their tan up? Is the bikini the wrong cut for them? Is their makeup not really suitable for what they're doing? There's those sort of things, and those are the intangible things, and they're all being looked at. And the problem is, when you come to those sort of things, that overall look thing, every judge has got a slightly different opinion.
That's right. So it's getting very subjective.
It's pretty easy from a muscularity perspective. She's jacked, she's too jacked. That's easy. Is your condition right? Like, yep, you can see if a girl's walking and you can see separation in the quads, you're like, okay. Those sort of things are relatively simple, but those overall look things, and even from a posing perspective, I mean, I know myself, I don't pay a lot of attention as soon as they start transitioning into a pose, because that's when I'm looking down and I'm writing my notes, and then I look back up, okay, yep, and then look back down. But that overall look is really, really important. It's just, you have to understand that every judge is going to have a slightly different perspective on that, because you can't quantify exactly what you're looking for there. You can't say, they must all have hair of 29 inches in length and must be blonde of ABC color, whatever. it's all that's a real subjective one.
I think that one kind of comes down to, like, I mean, the bulk of it, unless you're really, really fine-tuning it, is what makes the judges want to look at you, or avoiding the judges wanting to not look at you for whatever reason. Because if you've got bad makeup, people don't want to look at you because it sounds really harsh to say, but if, let's say, your posing is bad as well, or like your presentation just is not great, people don't want to look at you because subconsciously they feel a little bit bad. They feel a bit embarrassed to be looking at you when they know that you aren't looking the greatest. So they are going to subconsciously be like, look at someone else. So it's kind of avoiding that situation as much as possible. Or even like that's like Chris said with the white suits, or even really blonde hair, it can happen as well. When something is too bright, it's a little bit blinding and you skip past it. You're like, oh, this is kind of a little bit bright to look at. I'm going to look somewhere else. Which is why a lot of girls who are blonde, if they have the white blonde hair, a lot of the time they actually get told to darken it a little bit because on stage it gets a bit too reflective. And I know that has been feedback at pro shows before. There's a few pros like Ashlyn Little or Ashlyn Brown has mentioned that as her feedback before. And then, same with the white suit. It's a little bit too white, a little bit too reflective under the harsh stage lights sometimes. And you kind of want to look somewhere else a little bit. It's not necessarily like a conscious thing of, I don't like this. It's more of it's a very like 1% thing of, I'd rather look at this other person.
Yeah, it's kind of like you get this little itch on the back of your neck where you go, and you move on to the next one. And again, it's harder at the amateur level than it is at the pro level. And so it should be. I mean, really at the pros, as I said, they tick all the boxes. And if a pro's making a mistake on the cut of her bikini, it's not a very good pro.
I have to sidetrack to this. Oh my God. The amount of people I've seen lately with their suits, I don't know, I think it's that some companies aren't using elastic on the pro cut, and it flares up at the back over their glutes, and you can almost see straight through it over their glute. And so I know a very easy example of this was Yarishna in her recent wellness pro show. But I saw a few other girls at Aussie with the same problem. And it's like all wavy at the top.
Yeah.
Why? Like surely you've seen that's not like, surely you've seen that before you went on stage. There's ways to like fix that, like easily DIY, or just like pull it. I don't know. But why? Sorry, I've just been seeing that a lot lately. I've been seeing it a lot. So I just had to put that out there.
You would think that would happen. But I mean, the reality is that it's like you need to understand what the importance level of for each federation that you're in is judging. And a lot of athletes, they chop and change federations, and either in the same competitive season, or they switch from one to the other and go back to another federation. You can't always expect, if you clean up in one federation, that you are going to be rewarded in another federation, because that federation does have a different look. And it's really, really important that you have an understanding of what it is, because you're there as the athlete, or the one that's going in there. And it's also really important that your coach has an understanding of what they're looking, because they're the person who's creating the plan to fit that criteria. And so when you're looking at coaches, that's a really good thing to ask them and say, hey, I want to do ABC show. Now, if your coach says, I don't do that federation, ask them why. And if they do say, yep, okay, cool, then ask them, do you know what the judging criteria is? And it's really important that they actually do have an understanding. It doesn't mean they need to know the inside and outside of that federation and the judges and stuff like that. They need to have a close personal relationship and, all catching up over a glass of vino on a Friday night before the show. But they need to understand what they are, and also so that they can advise you on what's the right class for you to do in the right federation, because there is a distinct different look between a IFBB bikini, or an NPC worldwide bikini, an ICN bikini, an OCB bikini, and any other federation you can think of. They all have their own different criteria. And that is not to say that one criteria or one look is better than the other. You're always going to hear this argument that the pinnacle is IFBB Pro League. And that's cool. You can say that. You can't really argue that they're the top of the food chain. But that doesn't mean that it's the right look for you. So, if you don't look like, these various Amazonian goddesses that compete in the Pro League, and you are more of the muscularity is not as high, and you're more about symmetry and you've got good conditioning, then, that just means that you're better suited for a different class and a different federation. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with exploring that as an option. And wholeheartedly encourage you to do that.
And I think it is important, if you are going to do different federations, it's important to plan that. So, for example, if I was going to compete again in an ICN and IFBB in the same season, I would probably plan my ICN shows to be first and my IFBB shows to be last, so that I could show up more conditioned for IFBB, because IFBB rewards, well, at least for me, I look a bit closer to IFBB standard when I am very, very lean. With ICN, they don't actually like it when I am too lean. So they prefer me being a little bit on the fuller side. So for me to go the other way around would be really weird. Or if I was to alternate, I would not be able to hit both criterias. I would need to separate them. So that is something that's also important, is to think about what are you actually trying to hit? Because again, condition is that second top point on IFBB or NPC. And then when you come to ICN, it's point number 3. So the shape is a lot more important for ICN, because shape and muscularity both kind of feed into each other. Whereas IFBB, symmetry and balance comes down to third. So it is important to look at that and to think about that. So a couple other things that I want to make sure that people are able to understand when we're looking at some of those criteria, some of those key words that are said in there. When they say graininess, tell the people what that means, Chris. What does graininess mean? Because they say in Bikini they do not want any graininess.
Graininess is a conditioning thing, and it's an extreme level of conditioning where you have got no body fat, you have got no water under the skin. You are, your skin's like an onion peel. When you pull on the skin on your hand and let it go, it should go like that. My wife's going to turn that into a meme. I'm screwed. But it's like literally you can see every single muscle fiber, and it looks like a wood grain. It's an epic level of conditioning. It's just not appropriate for bikini.
So what's the difference, Chris, between graininess and striations then? Because striations is those muscle
striations
fibers.
Is literally where you see the straight lines. Graininess is more to do with that extreme level of dryness. I think Shane Hunter from Nutrition System New Zealand describes it as being crispy. Was it called it crispy? Crispy? No, crispy.
So graininess is almost like the step above striations. So if you're starting to get striations, which apparently they do not want in bikini, that's definitely a sign to stop. And then once you go beyond that, that's when you get the graininess, when you get past.
That's go and drink a shit ton of water and hurry up. But so it's getting that right level of condition. I mean, it's all being judged and it's all being added together. And as I said, it's all being looked at from every single pose. And the thing you've got to remember is you're being judged before you think you are. Okay, so the minute you're standing on that stage and you're waiting for your opportunity to go on, and the marshal's standing there and he's got his or her hand on your back and saying, and off you go, and lets you free. If you can be seen standing there and you are just, you just relax and let everything go, you're not making a good impression. So walking onto the stage, like that first walk, that's really, really important. How you stand, your facial expression. If you look bored to tears and you just couldn't give a flying rip, all of those sort of things go into forming part of that subconscious picture that the judges are building about you. A confidence, your transitions, how you walk from your mark, from like when they're swapping over, which is why when Rachel and I do our posing workshops, we don't actually focus on the mandatory posing. We're like, if you haven't learned that before you get here's our card, call in and make a booking. We'll take your money.
I mean, you're still welcome to come if you haven't learned them. We can show you like very, very quickly the basics, but we won't be able to do one-on-one, which is what you would need. So we can quickly show you enough that you can join in. But obviously we wouldn't be able to spend a lot of time on it, because usually for a first timer, I would be spending the entire session, at least usually the entire first session on just those mandatory poses.
And they're really important to have. But we do sort of focus a lot on how you walk to the mark. Like when you're told to change from one side to the other or do whatever, all of that sort of comes into it. And again, that if you watch what show were we at? And they split the ICN has this thing where if the stage is like, if you've got say 6 athletes, they'll have 3 step back, and then they'll have the other 3 on the other side swap to the other side of the stage. Now, this does make perfect sense when you think about it. It's a good way to get all the judges a look. But when you
nobody knows that it's happening.
Nobody knows what's happening. And so these girls step back and they say, now, ladies, would you transition to this? And they all go, and then it looks really funny. But that's part of it. It's also if you're in, say, the NPC or IFBB, where they say, the athlete X, 51 change with athlete 47. How do you do that? That's a really important part that you're actually judged on. Your facial expressions, that first impression when you come out, when you acknowledge the judge. What Rachel and I were talking about yesterday. Is it a 1-finger salute? Is it a 2-finger salute? Is it like a woohoo when you come on stage? Yeah.
Oh,
Hello.
Mana wave.
Yeah. Rachel. No. All of that first impression counts, but you are being judged right then. Like when you're doing if you're doing quarter turns, how you transitioning from it. Not all judges are looking at your transitions at all times. So, you shouldn't be disheartened if you happen to look down and all you can see the judges is the top of their bald, shiny head, in my case, because they are probably taking notes on the scoreable part of the posing. And like having probably when you're on the chevrons on the side of the stage, you are being judged. So if you stand there with a dead face, resting bitch face, whatever you want to call it, and you look completely disinterested and you just, there's always that one athlete that looks like that's a complete waste of their time and obviously they should have won, so why the hell am I standing here? All of that stuff just transitions through your face and it's like a radio beam straight to the judges, and they can't help themselves but go, this, I was going to say expletive, but I won't.
Well, again, it comes down to that making the judges want to look at you more.
Yeah.
If you can make the judges want to look at you more, they're probably going to try to place you higher. Like if they don't want to look at you because of what XYZ reason, if it's posing, makeup, hair, presentation, whatever, if they've got like this little force field radiating from you saying don't look at me, they're not going to want to look at you and you're going to place lower. Whereas if you have like that, what we call like the magnetic aura, where you're drawing in the gaze, some people just have it. Like there's a few people that they just have that like magnet's charisma. Yeah. They don't need to be taught it. They just have it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like the minute you put your pinky toe on that stage, you are being judged. Whether you're being judged by the actual criteria from their muscularity through the conditioning and symmetry and presentation, etc., or you're being judged on a lot more of those smaller intangibles, facial expressions, how you transition, all that sort of stuff. You are being scrutinized. And if you have an issue with that, then you shouldn't be on stage, because that is the judge's job, is to look at you and go, meh, or in this particular pose, this person wins. So from the minute that you are introduced and your number is called, you're on. It's showtime, baby. You are, and there are some athletes that are really, really good at it. Rachel's a classic example. She just basically, it's like her number gets called and she's like, hello. She just like light switch goes on and you're like, where the hell did that come from? 5 minutes later.
That's actually what I call it when I'm posing people, when I'm teaching them presentation with when I'm saying like to do the big smile and their pose, I'm like, turn the lights on.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
That's true.
But that's where are the carbs? Where are the carbs? But yeah, it's you're constantly being judged from that very split second. So when you're on the side of the stage, hold your pose. Make sure that don't spend every 3 seconds switching from this side and switching to that side and just moving, because the judges are like, okay, stand still. It's a battle when you're up there, and you are being judged from the minute you walk on to the minute you walk off, and it's probably the walk off really that
the straighten up and just walk away.
Yeah, it's suddenly like, okay, I'm done, and you can see it. It's like suddenly the hips get tucked in and the butt goes flat, and they're like, and they walk off, and it's like, really, the last thing you want me to remember is the fact that your glutes just went poof. And you're like,
all right, Chris, I think this is a good time to go into some judges' pet peeves. As a judge, what were some of your like peeves or icks if we're going to go with the general for language?
Yeah, well, probably one of my biggest pet peeves that would cause me to have a negative effect was bad sportsmanship on stage. If it's the arrogance, the overconfidence, the like somebody else doesn't deserve to be sharing your spotlight. And if you're displaying that, it's very hard for me to look past that initially. So that one. Overposing is another one. Back in the day, there used to be a lot more overposing than there is now. In fact, if anything, posing has simplified a lot. Overposing. Unfortunately, the days of the cheek slap and the blowing kisses and winking at the judges, that has gone, thank God.
Well, it depends on what country and what federation, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. I do remember just sort of shrinking down in the chair going, don't want to do that. What else? Not listening to the head judge. That's a big one.
And to be fair, sometimes you just can't hear them.
That's true. And it does surprise me how many shows do not have a stage monitor, like actually a speaker facing to the athletes. It's like, they can't hear you. And it's like, and then you hear the judges talking louder. Number 23! And the number 23 is like, And you're like, she can't hear you, mate. You can yell all you like, but the speakers are facing me, not her. But not listening. It's like when they are calling your numbers or when they are, I mean, okay, look, people screw up and a quarter turn to the right is the other right. That happens all the time. Although if you notice that 4 of the girls are facing you, one of you is probably facing the wrong way. And
I always say majority rules. Majority rules. Because sometimes you are actually right. I've had it before where I've been in a lineup and there was 3 of us and I was doing 4 turns. I was doing all 4. I was doing correctly. Yeah. The other girls were doing 3. I don't know why. They were skipping the front pose, I think. But I just had to follow suit because like otherwise it looks like I'm doing the wrong thing. Because if 2 out of 3 are doing something else and no one corrects them, that just looks like I'm doing it wrong.
And you just go, you give it a bit of a laugh and you go,
yeah. I forgot to do my entire routine. Like,
you're like, don't worry about it.
That was at the pro show too.
Yeah. Why was it? You know, it's, I guess that's the main thing that, you know, the main ones that I always found. And to be fair, that doesn't really happen that much to I mean, I have seen, like, if you say, particularly in the male classes or say some of the other, the ICN, for example, because they've got the rear back pose when the elbows are being out, is don't get into an elbow fight with the people next to you, because if you're the one that's going, I mean, I'm going to see that, and it's not the girl next to you that I'm going to penalize who's like, oh, I'm sorry, just move over. It's you being the freaking, you know, WWE superstar and dropping the elbow on the girl next to you that I'm probably going to penalize.
Actually, this does happen in Bikini and Wellness as well, like the relaxed arm being too far out and putting it in front of someone else's glutes, the girl next to you. Like, I've had this happen to me before as well, and it was a menace. So I actually had to keep trying to push this girl's arm away because I'm like, hey, your arm is literally in front of my body. Yeah,
I mean, and Rachel, when you teach girls to pose, you know, you have them put that little square down and say, that's your space. You know, if you can't fit your posing in that space, then, you know, that's a you problem. But that's...
Well, they do make it everyone else's problem, to be fair. They do make it everyone's problem.
And men's physique are the worst at it because, you know, they do the back pose, and for some reason, somewhere along the line, somebody's told them they should basically just stand like an airplane with their arms bent like this. And you're like, and you do realize it's a back pose, not a shoulder pose, guys. So, you know, if your triceps aren't touching your lats, your arms are in the wrong place.
Okay, so there you go. Most of Chris's peeves on judging when he was judging is actually posing related, posing and presentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything not posing and presentation related? You just instantly are like, no.
There has been, generally it will be the bikini if it's too small on the front.
That's still presentation.
But that's I suppose so. Yeah, look, nothing structurally or nothing. I mean, there might be somewhere I'm like, you are just completely in the wrong class. Why are you here? But I wouldn't say that that's a pet peeve. That's more like, well, you messed up. But most of it's going to be presentation related, and sportsmanship works into that. Like, you know, if you get moved out, and remember, most federations outside of the NPC and the IFBB, they don't necessarily putting you in numerical order. Just because you're in the middle doesn't mean you're first. But if you get moved and you roll your eyes and act like a spoiled little brat, that comes down to sportsmanship. And it's like, you know, you might like it, might not like it, but at least fake it until they get off.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks being moved to the outside, but yeah, that is something you see a lot of. Is as soon as someone moves to the outside, you can just see it on their face that they're upset, and their face just drops. So it is really important to, like, you're not going to get moved back into the middle if you're not showing why you deserve to be.
Yeah, I mean, and then you also have to look at it like post show, like, what the judging's about is like not focusing on why didn't I win or why didn't I place where I thought I should, or even why did ABC athlete beat me. You really should be focusing on what you can do better and asking for feedback from the judges around that perspective. It's not, don't go in saying, well, why did number 23 beat me? Because no professional judge is going to answer that question.
I have asked you that question.
Yeah, but you've asked me other cases, and I give you my honest feedback. But we have special. You're special. You get special treatment. I mean, the reality of it is you should be focusing on yourself, as in what you could do next time to perhaps meet the criteria better, to be presented better. You know, what is it that you can do? Because that is the only thing that you can control, are the things that you do. So don't focus on why you didn't win or why somebody beat you. Focus on what can you do in order to next time present a perhaps slightly more in line, and then hopefully next time that's sufficient.
And it is also important to, like we say, take the criteria with a little bit of a grain of salt. Because while it is the basis of what the judges are looking at, again, like we say, there is interpretation. Like, actually, this is really funny. I'm sorry, I wasn't intending to judge the criteria, but the wellness criteria.
Mm-hmm.
I quote, wellness athletes should display a foundation of muscle which gives shape to the female body, MPC.
Huh? Try that again?
Yeah, I thought that was funny. And also full round glutes with a slight separation between the hamstring and glute area. Also small amount of roundness to the delts. Should not display striations anywhere.
They've clearly never seen a pro show wellness then.
That was copy and pasted directly from the NPC.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, sometimes there are certain parts of criteria that have not been updated in a while.
Yeah.
So, while it should have the overall, I guess, image of what they are looking for. Usually there is an image that goes with it, like a literal person. Do not get in a huff because you look at the criteria, you look at your placing, and you say, well, I did not have squared glutes, and that girl did, and she beat me. Because that's where you're going to fall into this rabbit hole of saltiness, and there's no getting out of that.
No, there's not. And you have to remember, as an athlete, you never really see the full scorecards. I mean, sometimes you'll see them posted up and then you'll see, 7 judges and they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, miraculously, they're all in the same order. Yeah, I'm calling bullshit on that. Sorry, judges. I can say that now, not me. You've got to remember that there's a scorecard that you don't see. The judges, they're not just ticking a box and going, yep, first, second. I mean, if you ever see like the actual judging sheet and score sheet they give you, quite frequently you'll see numbers are scrawled out, notes are written all over the place. It looks like an absolute just cluster. So the judges are constantly ranking you. They're moving you around. And that's why when I score, I have a score sheet for every single pose, and I'm going down through that. And you got to remember, I might have ranked you number one when you first come out and do your front pose. And then there's 6 other girls that come out after you. I'm like, oh shit, actually, I got to move that girl around. And that will happen a lot. So it's a constantly ranking each pose.
That's actually a good point. What do the judges have in front of them? Because, people just don't know this stuff, okay? They don't know what the judges, actually have on their table. Because I think when I first started, I thought they had, a little matrix thing in that they would be taking notes on each individual competitor or, circling whatever on each individual competitor. Obviously, there's no time for that. But what does the actual piece of paper in front of you look like when you are judging?
It's literally, the actual scoring piece of paper is the one piece of paper they give you. They give you some note paper sometimes. As I said, I always have B4 exercise books. But it will literally say athlete number, blah, 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 and then placing next to it. And in the IFBB, you rank everybody from 1 through, which really sucks when you've got 30 people in a class and you're like, after 10,
who's 23rd and who's 22nd?
Yeah, you're like, all the same. So that's essentially one sheet. I do, for every judge that I work with, I give them a score sheet for each class that says ranks. It's got each individual pose. It'll have the athlete number, and then they score each. And this is how I do it. If it's not given to me, I will write it up in a book myself, because this is how, if somebody comes back to me and says, why did you put this person here? I can go back and say, well, actually, they had a really good front pose, they had a really good back pose, but they were weak on here. So you'll see at certain shows, they will be given a matrix that literally lists all the poses, and they'll go through, 1, 2, 3, 1. That's how they're supposed to do it. So again, they're constantly ranking. But essentially, like I know with ICN, they just get given a little thing for the top 5, and they write down their top 5 in order, and they hand it across to the criteria. But I know they are now giving them that matrix. And why do I know that? They are being scored on each pose. So there's a lot of constant ranking. It's a comparative sport, right? They're scoring you when you come out, like, wow, great front pose, great this and great that. And then you get your call outs and you suddenly go, shit, hang on. So you start moving around. So you're constantly being, constantly being compared. You also got to remember that the judges you're being judged against who turns up. Doesn't necessarily mean you're being judged against the criteria, because nobody could match the criteria. And I've had this discussion with other federations before, where it's like, who's going to have the balls one day to say, I'm sorry, ladies, but none of you meet the criteria, so we're keeping the shiny little medals.
You could just say, okay, guys, you came the furthest away from us.
You are the closest out of all of you to what we were looking for, so therefore you win, which is pretty much what happens. But they're not comparing you against what you looked like last year. They're not comparing what you looked like last month in a different regional show. They're not comparing you against Instagram. I constantly get feedback from people if I suddenly start following them on Instagram. Oh, now you're following me. Well, I never followed anybody when I was a judge, because I didn't give a flying rip. I don't want to see what you look like. You show up on stage and I'm like, oh, you look good. I don't want to go, oh man, that picture you posted 2 weeks ago, you look great. What happened?
Photoshop.
You're not being judged against your check-in photos because I don't see your check-in photos. And especially if you're one of my clients, I'm not judging you anyway. And you're only being judged against the lineup that's there. So those are some really important things you need to understand is like from a judging perspective, they are on from the minute that it starts. And it's, it's very, very exhausting because they are constantly comparing. They are constantly evaluating where you are in a position. And it's not just a first impression counts, especially when you're dealing with experienced judges. Because it's at the end of the day, judging is a privilege and judging is a profession, even if you're not a professional judge, because you as the athlete deserves that attention because you cannot have a bodybuilding show without three things: an athlete, a judge, and a venue. You need all three of those things to happen. And, judges have a job to do and it's not an easy job and it's pretty much thankless. It's certainly not glamorous. And they are doing the best they can against the criteria they've got. And, if they are, if they don't do the job, they actually get scored now, a lot of judges and a lot of federations. And if they don't measure up to the desired criteria, well, guess what? You don't see them judging again.
That's it.
What else we got, Rach?
Well, that's probably about us for today because, if we go too much into any of the other categories, we're going to run very, very over time.
We don't care.
But they are all... Well, even like fitness wellness, but they are pretty overall similar. It's just that they kind of they adjust things. I know that the NPC one especially is literally they've copy and pasted it across and changed like one thing across each.
Yeah.
And so, wellness, they're obviously looking for, it's just different shapes, right? So wellness, similar kind of concept, but they're looking for out of proportion glutes. So they're less emphasis on the balance. They're now throwing balance out of the window. So yeah, they're always going to be ranking those same kind of points that we mentioned before. It's those little bullet points that we said that each federation has, and they do prioritize them differently depending on each federation. So like we said, work to those priorities and work to what your body does. And then don't get too stuck on certain points of the criteria because for one thing, open to interpretation to an extent. And for another thing, it depends on who shows up.
Yeah.
Because even if you, let's say, technically hit a lot of those points, but if someone overall has more of the, let's say, wellness look than you do, even if you technically hit the points, well, then they're probably going to get rewarded over you. So don't get too stuck on the criteria. So we've tried to explain a little bit about what some of it means, but also if you want to understand the judging, you need to actually go to shows. I like to guess the top three. That's always my favorite thing to do is take a guess. And then when they call out the scores, be like, oh, which one's right, which one's not, why? And then I'll think, okay, can I justify that in my brain? If not, I would turn to Chris and ask about it. So turn to someone next to you and be like, well, what do you think? Why do you think that person beat that person? So it's good to have those discussions. So like we say, go to the shows.
She doesn't like asking me that question because I go, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, the thing you got to remember is judges usually only have seconds to compare each athlete. They don't have a lot of time. Placings, they're comparative, they're not absolute, okay, because they're comparing apples to apples. The other thing you got to remember is one competitor can completely change a class. You could have 5 girls come out in bikini and they're all they're hitting all of the criteria, and then you have this one that comes out and it's just she's nailed every single thing, and suddenly everything is now judged against that competitor. Most judges pretty much they have an initial impression within the first call out, but comparisons can be basically used to confirm or challenge what that impression is. And presentation can enhance, this is the thing about posing and presentation, it can enhance a great physique, but it's very, very rarely going to rescue a bad one. So
actually,
for all of you listeners,
sorry, I just wanted to do one more point off that because that was really interesting what you said about one person can completely change the lineup. So let's say you have someone who is way, way, way too jacked, let's say for bikini. The next most jacked person is probably, even if they might have won without that other person being there, they now probably are not going to win because they are the second most muscular. They're the closest to that other person who is now coming last. So that also does make a huge impact because in the judge's mind, they're like, well, that person's way out of the criteria. Well, this person is the closest to them. I can't reward them.
Yeah, it does throw. Sometimes you literally, and I've done it myself, when somebody walks out and you go, crap, now I have to go back again. But
which is why you often get the situation where sometimes you actually get a point where in a show someone looks too good to place first. Like they look too much like a pro to place first in some cases. Like they, in theory, should win if you're judging by pro standards. But
I have seen that happen. I've literally gone, and I've been told by judges in other countries, oh, well, that person can't win because they look too much like a pro. And you're like, isn't that the point, that they have to win at an amateur level to become a pro? And I'm talking to a brick wall sometimes, but anyway. And for all you athletes listening, if you could remember one thing, a couple of things about today, it's like, stop trying to impress the judges. Start trying to become the obvious winner. Give the judges a reason to put you in first place. Those are two very, very different things. Okay, you don't need to impress the judges. You do want to be the obvious winner. I actually love that when the athletes make it hard for us, for judges. It's when you really have to look at it and you're getting down to the individual poses and you know the nitty gritty. Is what I am looking for. Is I'm looking for somebody to be that obvious winner, and it doesn't happen very often. There are generally, a few shows that I've seen in the last couple of years where somebody comes out and you're like, that's the winner. So again, don't stop trying to impress the judges. Start trying to become the obvious winner.
And don't give the judges a reason to penalise you.
Don't piss the judges off.
I mean, I feel like that's sound advice.
Yeah, Jeremy, what should I not do? Don't piss the judges off. Okay, good. Problem solved. Okay, yeah. But anyway, so hopefully that's given a bit of clarity around what the judges are looking for. As I said, it's not cut and dry. It's not paint by numbers. But remember, the judges are there to do a job. They're there to learn as they go along, and that's the point. That they develop judges with more experience, get more skills. They get faster at being comparative, at doing the comparisons. And at the end of the day, they're not looking for you to impress them. They're looking for you to be outstanding. And at an amateur level, that's really what they're looking for. At a pro level, they're looking for who's the weakest. And it literally is at a pro show, the weakest don't survive. Because that's how you start judging. You almost start judging from the bottom up. You're like, nope, and go from there. So anyway, hopefully that shed some stuff on what the judges are actually looking for. And again, this is just, a lot of it is based on my experience as a judge. So don't hold it against all the other judges. There are some very, very good judges out there in New Zealand, Australia, and around the world. But again, remember that they're there to do a job. And it's not an easy job, because if it was, you'd all be doing it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to be a judge. First, second,
I'm sitting there behind the judges going, I'm glad I'm not doing this. All right. What else have we got going on, Rachel? As we said, we've got the workshop coming up July 18th in Christchurch, and anybody in the area, there's still a couple of spots left, not too many. But if you want to come down and learn a little bit more about stage presentation management and how to make yourself obvious winner, pop on down. Hopefully we see some guys there this weekend. I'm not prepared to put any money on that.
Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't be either, to be honest. But please prove us wrong. Prove us wrong.
Yeah. And Sam, that doesn't include you.
Yeah, he's a team member. He doesn't count.
Yeah, he doesn't count. In fact, he'll be in trouble if he doesn't show up. But anyway, what else are we going on? And the next show coming up is the ICN North Island show in Palmerston North. So that will be, we look forward to seeing people down there. That's their first time they've done one in Palmerston North, so that'll be good. And then what else have we got going on? That's about enough.
Yeah, we're still we're at least 1 to 2 months away from most of the big stuff. Peak season will be coming up around, we're starting in probably August to October. We've got a lot of pros competing in about 6 weeks, I believe. So, yeah, that's kind of when everything starts to get going.
That's when crazy season starts. But, yeah. And as always, if you have enjoyed today's completely off-script episode, please make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, because it actually does help people find us. And we'd love you to leave us some feedback and comment on either of the platforms. And, of course, if you've got anything that you'd like us to discuss, please do drop us a DM. We are happy to take your feedback and your suggestions, and if there's anybody you'd like us to actually talk to, by all means send us a recommendation or have them reach out to us. So have a great week, enjoy your cardio and or your drive to work, and again, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next Monday.
Enjoy.